In last week, they paid for $10 plus plus. I go, okay. I said, the minimum's going to be this.
Oh, to worship, that's right.
Bring a stat of water and
Right.
set up a room and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, we'll pay it. That's okay. Then we'll do it.
No,
But I'm not
that's
really
okay.
interested in private.
So what was wrong?
Oh, no, it was kind of like,
Well,
okay, so one of
told
those
one guy,
things
he actually goes, if you're living in the house, you know,
so it's just like, from the little church up in Plymouth.
just go and have some time off once in a while.
When have you been at?
My wife, actually, we got married in '05, and our plans were, we bought a house in August of 2005. We got married on September 3rd of 2005. And in between that time, Katrina hit. So everyone changed in Baton Rouge, and we were like, so we did a home in Louisiana, which was moved from California was okay, but not having a job now, our partnership dissolved. My partner pulled out.
The treat factor would be gone.
So I've
You're
got
just sitting there.
nothing.
I'm
I'm like,
selling 36
you can't
bucks
just
out of my
move to
pocket for lunch.
Louisiana and take a 100K job.
No.
Just out of the
Not
blue.
in-
Well,
that's it, yeah.
I'm gonna move there, and yeah, right after post Katrina, just pick up a 6-figure job, support my wife and everything else. It's scary, so we just were out for a little while, and my wife went back to work. She was in sales, and she worked for Micro and some other companies, so she picked that up. She went to Best Buy after that. So Best Buy, so she was really good for Best Buy. So she took a small account. So they were just like, maybe you need to move out there. We'll pay for your move if you don't want to go. So
You're going, yes.
we were like,
We're gonna talk shop here because we have the same camera body.
Okay.
So,
Would you love me?
yeah, we can talk shop. Okay.
It's just, there's just something about it. I think it's because of, it was the first couple of years of marriage, being older, and, there was some, it's kind of like, a lot of people joke around, what's the best, for 8 years, best 6 years of my life, kind of thing.
Yep.
And it was totally true when we moved here, we had kids, we had almost 5-year-old twins. So we met people and we shared things that we couldn't share with anyone else. We started a new friend, we had to find our friends together, we had to find our house together, so everything was, it was just got,
Do you live in Erie?
we're in Parley.
Right, okay.
So,
Beautiful area. They are.
So we hear the wild down there, so it's a beautiful home, great neighbors, we know all of our neighbors.
Minnesota tends to do that.
Well, I've heard, it's either one or the other extreme. I mean, there's no in between, there's not like, either love it or hate it. It's kind of like,
Once you're there, it's usually you don't want to. Somebody's telling you to go in there.
exactly.
It's like, why would I want to?
But all the people that leave it can't wait to get back.
Can't wait to get back. I long to do that. I just. Well, one of my children left there. Not that far. And then 5 minutes past the car. So,
Where?
just north of Houston. So it was interesting to hear them talk about it.
Well, I was just there. My friends living. I used to own a home in the Woodlands.
Okay,
So,
beautiful.
my office was right off of the 14th Tee box at 6 miles. So
Really?
Church
Okay,
shed.
yep.
But we had a bunch of bubble
Church
sets.
shed, I'm sorry, yeah.
So that's what I used to
Yeah.
do. Sandwich shops. So we both, partner and I bought our home there. So his family lived there. And they loved it there.
I'm
He was
actually,
like,
my
he
wife
lived in
was
San
same time.
Antonio. He
She
moved
grew
out
up
this
there.
week, this
We
one.
lived there for
He was just like,
20, well, I forget
if you
how
got,
many
if you want to,
years.
I'm single, so he was like, if you want to move out this way, we was man,
One thing you're doing.
company, let's work together, let's work together. Because I was running all the sides of San Antonio.
It's hard. We just launched the website for our second one from the church. So
would love to
Keep up
I
with
saw
all
them
that.
up there. But, so a good friend of mine, guy that actually led me to
So you post all your stuff?
really influential part of my life. I love me to Christ. He explained Christ to me.
Oh, yeah.
I was already there and held crack open on my shelf. Married my wife and I said, "Well, so if you don't think you would be humble, those other side."
We used to
Yep.
spend a lot here, so we lived up there.
But yeah,
I went back 6 times in probably a couple of years.
where in Willis, we went to Ship's Church.
She did
We
too.
also went to the
Our daughter
Methodist
went
Church.
down there.
I
went traveling.
I was traveling most of the time. So but I was second Baptist.
Well, Mascot is where I was in. It's only 8 miles from the church.
Which is right by Paul. Paul, was First Baptist. But my best friend's wife was friends with Greg Matt in high school, which is funny, at First Baptist. So we were just kind of,
Wow.
when I went over there and visited, they were just like, "Oh, I went to high school with that guy." So they were just kind of like, "No, he's the pastor at First Baptist." You're just like, I mean, because you're like, that's the same people that Kevin and you work in church. You do.
I tried trying to think of just think about which one was so when you're alive, I mean, we had a group show up at our church. His mom was
You took your church
he didn't
supplement.
fly early. So then we had someone else that was in the Minnesota area, and John, Jamie was Thomas. They were there, well, they were the pastor was raised in California. Wow, you know, please do not tell my history or.
Yeah, you don't, but you know what, it's part of your story. That's what makes you work. I think that's what matters. But that's the consequence. Because if I don't, it's not going to influence anybody. It's not going to impact anybody. But if that person was now my story's going to impact that person.
It will.
And be like, wow.
God can do great.
We're like, wow. I thought I believed until that. That's why I'm so All right, well, welcome today, guys. For you guys that just missed my entering my fun joke, but I gave it away too early. Welcome to Amplified Leadership Class. My yell there, so. Today, I love to start in prayer, of course, so let me start that real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you so much for this opportunity just to meet other individuals that have a heart for serving and a heart for hospitality. And we just love for you, love the fact that you got us and gathered us all together today. And just thank you for the hands that prepared a wonderful lunch. Thank you for the staff here at First Orlando. And just thank you for all the attendees that were able to make it. And we just ask for special travel blessings for them and just continued success in each and every one of their ministries. And we pray that. So we usually do a leadership class every year, and in here, just kind of go through it. And we had our church pastors and some of the directors that jump on board, kind of all read different books. And I have the fortunate position of actually operating a bookstore in our church. So when I'm a reader, I was like, man, couldn't be a better. So I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, I don't know if I really want to buy that, but we can check it out for a little bit. Or we have to check some of the books to see if they're worth selling. And so this was one that we just started. Dan Ryland worked with John Maxwell for about 20 years. He's his right-hand man. So great executive pastor. Just has some great ideas and just definitely a worshiping heart. Just loves the Lord. And put it all in a book. So I definitely encourage. It's a great book. Amplified Leadership. Amplified Leadership.
Got it.
No, y'all missed it.
What is it again?
Yeah. It was funny the first time, right, guys? Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah. So anyway, so just a good book. It's obviously it's 5 practices. So the 5. Welcome to Marcus. I'll tell you later. So, anyway, so the biggest thing I can tell you about any of these books, you guys can read and you guys can pick up on it. I'll go over really basics, but really what I feel and just on my heart this morning is with leadership, there's so many different churches represented here, small, medium, large. You might have a top-heavy organization. You might have some different ways that your church runs and leadership, and more of the leadership snags that you might encounter when you're trying to do God's work. And we tend to get into those snags. We get political sides. We have people's opinions and all these other things that happen in our church. So I kind of felt, based off of this book, I just kind of wanted to be more real. So I'll go through the basics of the book and just go over it really quick. But really, it's more of an interactive. I want to turn it into more of an interactive class than just me sitting up here lecturing you on what you should be doing, because we all know what we need to be doing. It's just putting it into practice and being able to get and circumvent some of the things that are strong, where we can't really focus on these areas, and where we lose sight and we don't have that leadership. So we need to continue to work on that. So, but we'll go there. So when you're in this the book, and it's so funny because it's like Rylus when you just went through. It's very similar. So everything that he said today, I was like, I could just open the table of contents in this book and go through everything. So part 1 is establishing a relationship. So go figure, that's what we have to do. And then of course you get in there, you have to connect at the heart. So if you're meeting people and you're leading people, if they don't have as much passion as you have for what you believe in, they're not going to follow you. We all know that. When you look at George Washington, any of the great leaders in from any of the wars or generals or whatever it is, if your employees and your staff and your volunteers don't see that you have passion for people in establishing a relationship, that if you don't care, you're never going to get anybody to follow you. You're just going to be, you can call yourself a leader, but what's the true definition of a leader is one that has people that are going to follow you. So how do you build that relationship, and how do you get that off? You have to see that they have to see that you have a purpose, and they have to see where your heart is. So sometimes it takes a while to get there, and it's just like Rylus was talking about the reputation that an organization has. We were just talking about like high school. Ran into some people at a family reunion, and in high school back in Houston a couple of weeks ago, and Kevin Malott, church in the same sentence. It's kind of like, well, he must be dead. That's only he got buried. They must have a funeral for him, but that's about the only way that Kevin would be in the church kind of mentality. But if you set up that reputation for having those types of relationships, and this is the way the organization is, it takes a long time to change that. So that's why those relationships are so important. You got to go in there and you got to be passionate about what you do and change it. It's like the carrot, the egg, and the bean. You have to change those things that are in there, and that's one of the hardest parts. Does anybody encounter? And I'm not trying to throw any pastors under the bus or anything like that, but a lot of times our pastors are maybe involved in too many things, and they hired me for a reason, and I'm here. I've got 20-something years of experience in restaurant franchising. I've done this. I know how to work with people. I have an education. I have all these things. And then someone, same thing. He has education. He's worked with people, everything else, but you don't know anything about plumbing. You don't know anything about this kind of thing. So I have a little saying at our church. And I was like, you did seminary. I did culinary. So you feed the souls, I'll feed the flock. Down here on the other side, the physical, feeding. So we kind of separate those things, and just getting it to know that, and let these people know that you're behind them, and that you care about them, and that you're going to protect them no matter what. So you're kind of their armor for your department. That's the only way you're ever going to change that. You can't just go in but at the same time, I still have to build a relationship with those people, and that's sometimes people, that's where they miss the leadership qualities. Is like, how do you lead your people and create new friends friends at the same time. And that's where a lot of times that we mess up, and we have to be very cognizant of what's going on in our surroundings. And you listen. You have to have an open ear towards always listening for what's happening. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Did I upset someone? Did I not? And it's kind of like what they just answered with those questions. Like, if you're charging children's this and this, you're going to get sides, and eventually it's going to catch up with you, and people are going to call you on it. So you always want to maintain an even when you go through there. Always when you hire people, just like it's that Rylas was saying earlier, is like you can't teach a duck to be an eagle. It's a great saying, So you really have to, if you really care about your department and you're not just trying to fill holes or stick a finger in the dam, you always have to just always look out what's best for you, and it's going to be a lot of work at times. You're going to feel, especially in church. I mean, we've already. I don't know how many of you guys are actually just have an extra 20 hours laying around because you have a staff that everything's done already? Anybody? Yeah, exactly. It seems like it's just the opposite in church world. Well, we have 80 hours worth of work, so we can get a part-time person to fill that hole. So usually you're doing 20 hours worth of work is you're trying to do the work of 80-hour person, or 80 hours worth of work with a 20-hour employee. We know that this is a problem in the church, and and I'm glad that we count on the Holy Spirit and God to provide and to help us get through those things. But sometimes that's what makes us, if we don't hire the right people and we really put our trust in those people to do the right work and tell them up front that this is what it's like. You got to be real with your people, and you have to really appreciate the people for who they are. So make sure you always hire the right people that you feel are the ones that should be on your team. Does anybody what's the word that we use at church a lot? Nepotism? Any of you guys have that at your church? Any of you like carrying on? I've had success with it. So it's for me, it puts people on a different plane, and but then I have others that are like, okay, when you're picking somebody, which one's harder to fire? So you got to kind of, so if the pastor's sister, if you hire her, it might be a little more difficult to to fire them. So always kind of look at that when you build your staff, and appreciate it. But you have to appreciate people for who they are. So when you hire those people, realize that you are, get to know them. It's just like Rylas was saying, like, have a conversation with them, because if somebody asks you if you have the experience and you're good at what you do, what are they going to tell you in an interview? Okay. That they're the best. Man, you'd be stupid not to hire me, because I am the best thing that's ever, I mean, it's unfortunate. That's just the way that interviews are set up. So you just got to make sure that you really get into those people. And when you're leading, the only way you're going to be a great leader is if you take the time to hire a great support staff. And that's the whole point. Marcus, I mean, you see it here at First Baptist. His staff, I mean, they're impeccable. They'll just go out of their way to make sure that you're accommodated. And that one service mentality starts at the it starts at the top of the chain at Dr. Youth. I mean, he's like, that's the whole church is focused on that. So to turn that tide over in leadership, if you don't have that coming from the top of your church, that's going to be where you're going to have that struggle, because we're still way down here in the order of importance for most churches. Preaching and teaching, of course, is always going to be a priority in the church, but then the caring and sharing and fellowship and everything else is going to be down here. So so how do you change that mentality of your church? And if your church is willing to jump on board with that, then it makes it easier for us to lead and do what we're doing. Does anybody have that problem at your churches that you feel like you're there, but you don't feel like you're getting a full 100%? They're kind of like, they're like, if they go into the red one more time, they're out of here type of, you walk on eggshells in any of your churches. So that's a blessing to not see that. And I think I think that a majority of church, I think it's changed over the last 5 to 7 years. I think that's changed a lot because people, I think it's going back to relational. So, we need more relationship, and I think people are craving that need, so that's a good thing. So that's good to see that no one's having that problem. So, part 2, part 1 of the five practices, of course, is establish a relationship. Part 2 is engage a follower. So you want to encourage people to build people up. So we always have to make sure that all of our volunteers, all of our subordinates that are in there. Heard a great thing. Listen to family talk. I had about a 20-minute commute in the morning to work, so listen to family talk on Cirrus. And they had focused on the family the other day. There was a gentleman. They were telling a story about a guy that used to play football for I forgot the name of he was a coach at Boise State in Missouri, Christian man that he protected him one day. He goes, Coach, I'd love to meet with you, but you probably wouldn't even remember me. I was on one of your teams. And he said that you taught me 5 words, the biggest thing that I ever heard that changed my life. And they were out on the football field, and one of the assistant coaches was just beating this guy, down and, just cussing at him and everything else. And the coach came in and said, teach him up, teach them up, not down. So train them up, not down. And if you teach people, you lift them up, you need to encourage them, not beat them up. And we tend to, especially in hospitality, sometimes we can be our worst enemies, and we're in a panic situation. We've got a client that spends a lot of money. I don't know if any of you guys, but hosting a funeral reception versus a wedding reception. Anybody notice the difference? A lot of times people are pretty relaxed, and the funeral, it's kind of a celebration. People are kind of very accommodating. They'll accept, oh, sorry, it's running a couple minutes late or whatever. Wedding reception, you got bridezilla and mother-in-laws and future mother-in-laws and everyone running around changing things, and you're just kind of trying to teach people that you have to accept these. How do you coach them up? But they're only going to emulate exactly what I've taught them. So when things go awry, if I panic and they see me sweating, then they're going to start panicking and they're going to start sweating. So we have to be those types of leaders in hospitality where where people don't see us sweat. So
We have a little thing we do in our food services. We tell all our employees and volunteers that we are total support to the ministries. And they're calling the shots because they're the ministry, but we support them through it no matter what. We don't say no. We say we'll try. And it's kind of it works. It just works for us. And to get back to your last point, I have an administrator that they supplement our food service, so they still feel like they're calling the shots, and they are. So you have to be able to listen to them, and even though they have no experience in restaurant business, but they're bean counters. They experience counting beans, and the key to it is that real happy medium and being honest. That's what that guy was saying today. What's it, Riley?
Yeah.
Be honest with them. You can't talk church. You can't blow smoke. You have to get everything out on the table. And if you start talking behind, it's a mess. So you get it. Be honest.
And it's so true. It's just be real. And
love.
If we hold our jobs loosely, and we look at this as like God sent us here for a season and it's a ministry. If my boss walked up to you tomorrow, and said, "Hey, Kevin, we're done. It's nothing you did," or even if it was something you did, I would tell them thank you for the 5 greatest years of my life, because it's the first time in my career that I sleep. I'm not counting beans at night. I don't wake up in the middle of the night with a Post-it note next to my bed like I used to.
Right.
And I had 14 Subways, 12 marble slabs, and 9 roly-polies, and think of all those managers. It's like, and I had stores from La Jolla all the way through Florida, that I would do that. So every day it was a new, my best friends, I tell people this, flight attendants, bank tellers, and apartment leasing agents were my best friends, because those were the only people that I saw on a regular basis. So you get into that, and you get that relationship side of that. and you get that control. We're at our church, I don't know how many, I could ask this question, but how many of your churches are self-supporting ministries? Anybody? Hands? Yeah, so everybody else is under kind of supplement from the church, and that makes a big difference also when you're in there, because we're all self-supportive. So I have 7 full-time employees, I have a 300,000 plus payroll that I have to meet, on an annual basis, and there's a little bit of stress there, but you know what, I'm just like, what can my worrying, I don't have to go to scripture, but what can my worrying do to make anything any better? So I have to go out when things are not looking that great, then that's when you step up, do little sales calls, you start working with your ministry, and you try to do some more things that can help. You start reinventing whatever you need to reinvent. And if God wants us to have that ministry at the church, which I feel is, I don't tell my senior pastor, but I think it's the most important ministry, because
It's not?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what, kind of, but I'm writing my new book. It's called Prideful Humility. So,
Oh, okay. I'll read that
I'm
one.
working on that one. Yeah. So, but it's really, we know how important it is if we don't reach those people that walk into our doors within the first 3 minutes of them walking into our church. If they're not greeted, and if they're not welcomed, and if they're not, they're looking for reasons not to come back. Most of the time, somebody's searching, for the first time, searching church, and we know that happens. So we have to have that relationship. But if fortunately, your people are at least somewhat familiar with, and at least they're bean counters, so that means that's kind of food service related. So at least they're using beans,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a relation there. So it's it helps out a little bit. But that's such a great example of, and if we're leading in spirit and we're praying about it, and and we encounter this all the time, and it goes through staff. And my boss, I work directly for a pastor administration, which controls HR and everything else. So there's about 6 of us directors of the church that work under him. Everything's biblical. So if I have trouble with a pastor, administrative assistant, or anyone, I do what this says. I haven't been wrong since I've been there. This person's a little rough around the edges or whatever. I need to go to him directly and say, hey, and 9 times out of 10 it was miscommunication. And if we solved all the problems. I'm so stupid. I thought it was something more serious than that. And it's like I'm thinking the worst case scenario, and he's gonna go tell so and so, and I feel horrible. And, oh, that's what you said? Yeah, exactly. So that's what happens a lot of times. And if it keeps going, then you can have another. You just go with the scripture and go biblical, and it's just kind of one of those things. But the biggest thing that we have, and we really push it with our employees in Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, do it with all your heart. That's all it's working for. And if you stay on that focus and you continue that as a leader, if your employees know that that's your focus and you stay with that, you're going to amplify that. That you push that all the time. When things are going awry, stop what you're doing. It only takes a few minutes, and it will change the attitude. It will change the environment. And you guys all know this because we all work in a church, and we should. We believe in the power of prayer and the Holy Spirit and everything else. And stop what you're doing for 2 seconds and ask the Holy Spirit to take over and intercede and take care of the situation. And if it continues to go awry, then maybe that was meant to be. We got to look at it that way. But we know where our trust comes from. We know where our hope comes from, and I think that's the biggest part of the leadership, is knowing that sometimes God's going to change our direction. We're leaders, and we think that we're all in control and everything else, but sometimes He will give us a detour, for that thing. But at the same time, we have to, as a leader, we always have to show that that we're in charge, and that we can, the captain's going to go down with the ship, and I'm ultimately responsible, but I'm going to be a God-loving, God-fearing man as the ship's going down or whatever, and I'm still in charge, and then employees will respect you so much for that. So, I think that's one of the qualities that we always have to look for in leadership, is that we know that not only are they protecting us, but we're protecting them. And fortunately, we're able to get, think about the impact that each one of us has for the kingdom. It's sitting up there, and, you know, look, my faithful servant, look what you've done for my kingdom. And all those people that we serve them a glass of water to, or a cup of coffee, or serve them dinner, they're all gonna be, you know, so it's just a great vision, you know, as a leader. So in always, you know, and then part 2, back to engage a follower, encourage people and build them up, inspire people to follow the vision. Do you guys all have a vision statement or mission statement? Anybody not have one at your church or in your department? Everybody have one?
I've created one.
Okay.
They never had one in my ministry.
Does the church have one? I mean, do you
They do, but
tagline, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, they have theirs, and I created one for my staff, and
Okay.
and it rubbed it off on the staff. And mine is first. I work for First Presbyterian Church, and mine is first class, first pres. And I mean, whatever we do, we're gonna do it with first class. Now the members getting wind of it, and that's what they walk in the hallway and say, "Hey, first class, Joe."
Good.
I just want to share that.
No, and that's good. I mean, but if everybody's on board with that,
And they are, and you can see that their performance level is higher.
yeah. And then when you start doing that, then you're like, well, you know, then I started, you know,
They take pride in what they
yeah,
do.
that's right. Mine is, you go back to, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question?
Oh,
That's mine, and my staff does not like that. My chef.
Creates work.
For
Creates
some.
work for them, and you have the ministry heart.
Yeah.
They have collected a paycheck a lot of times.
Martha and Mary, and I'm sure that we've all gone through the Martha and Mary scenario. And if you're not familiar with that scenario, I encourage you to read it. You know, but it's one of those situations, and you know, and I have to tell my staff all the time. It's like, I am so sorry, because everything that comes out of the kitchen, for some reason they think that I did it, and I'm like, they don't even let me in the kitchen. I mean, I'm serious. They're like,
Yeah, I know.
"Our paychecks in? Something wrong with my direct deposit? What are you here for?" You know, it's kind of. I stay away from them. I stay clear, because that's the kind of leader that I feel that my chef's 40 years old. She is, I mean, competent. I mean, unbelievably. I mean, just she's trained. She went to Scottsdale, okay, you know, so culinary. So before it was, yeah. So she's obviously, you know, she's well trained. But the whole thing is that when we go in there and you have that, you know, that attitude of, you know, it's like, I trust you, you know, and I'm not a micromanager or anything else, but then when you don't micromanage, then people are like, well, you don't, you know, it's just the opposite sometimes. So you have to know your people, and you just keep going through that. But it's just, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question? Is, I mean, it's changed our culture, because my predecessor was unbelievably, I mean, just organized. I mean, the infrastructure of our church, I mean, he did so much in there. I mean, full service kitchen, everything else. But at the same time, he went from director of hospitality to director of hostility, was the nickname that he had. So, you know, when he yelled at his wife in front of in front of our senior pastor, it was kind of like, is this the person we want? Even though he did a great job, and you know, still is a great man. I try to encourage him as much as I can, and he's, you know, does well where he's at. He's back in the secular world. But at the same time, you're just kind of like, you gotta, sometimes you just gotta rein those emotions in.
Now, did you have a problem with your transitioning from secular to ministry and with those comments, or did you always have that clear head leadership thing? Because in the restaurant business, it's accepted practice to get yelled at and to yell. It's in the kitchen, you're yelling all the time. Then when you come to the church, now it's politically incorrect.
Yeah.
So.
And it was, for me, myself, I was just glad to be there. I mean, because I've always had that same mentality. My whole, you know, so I had the business partners. I was the working partner. So I always had these business partners that were always on me. And I'm the shepherd leader. I always protect the flock. So no one else ever did anything wrong. It was always, hey, it's my bad. You know, and I'm still the same way. That, you know, it's like when somebody doesn't do something right, or food cost is out of line or something like that, it's like, why are you worried? You know I'm going to take it up, and then my boss gets mad at me because you protect your people too much. You know, I'm just like, no, that's what I feel called to do. and that's my leadership style. And if you need, if you want a different type of style, I'm not gonna, I can't do that. You know, it's like, you know, that's what you're for. You know, good cop, bad cop. We can play this all day. You know, and I think it's great to have those.
We had a person in our church that we hired to from a secular world, and they came to work for us. And 2 weeks later, she came and she goes, question me, why don't you all yell? Why am I not getting yelled at in the United States? Because we want you to love God, and we want to love you. So.
And we have a little saying. Of course, it's Grace Church, and you know, it was like grace isn't just a word that's on the outside of the building, and we have to remember that. It's like when people come into this building, it's not just the name of our church; it's what we give, you know, to every single person. And if you don't do that, and you don't lead that direction, you know, and it doesn't. And that's the biggest thing, is that you definitely want first class. You want first class service. You want the yes. Now, what's the question mentality and everything else? And everybody always wants to hit you with that, well, what if? You know, and I'm just kind of like, man, God is so good to us. We've been blessed. I mean, every year that I've been there, we've met our budget. We've never even had even close to coming short. So nothing's ever, and we just started blessing our ministries with, you know, with we give 50% discount off of the, you know, the rack stuff, so they can get fillets for, you know, $10, you know, whatever it is, you know, the half cost, you know, what it would be for a normal, you know, client, that they get to share in the revenue, you know, or the, you know, the profits and everything else. So it's been really neat to be able to lead that way and to be a leader. And you know, our inside ministry sales have like quadrupled over the last 4 years, because we're that support system. We're the hands and feet of the church, and they see how important that it is to continue to grow.
And it's flattering when other staff in other departments want to work in the kitchen. I mean, I really mean that. I mean, I have custodians, hey, I'm going to transfer a company. You have any open? Can I work with you? And I'm flattered, you know? Like you say, you got to lead by example.
And it's so important, you know, to be able to do that. Part 3, back to 5, practical, amplified leadership. 3, embrace a team member. So we always want to invite individuals into meaningful ministry. So we want to invite people, you know, so you're always shopping for people that you know are going to be a good, you know, fit for your ministry. Because, you know, you think about, you know, it's the same thing as hiring employees. You want to get people in there. You don't want people just, for some reason at churches, you know, it's almost like, you know, camp or something, you know, somebody got stuck washing the dishes or something like that. Nobody wants to wash dishes. So those people that are dishwashers, you know, just like some people, and I used to, when I had my ice cream stores, some people were just made to make ice cream in the back of the shop, or you got a face for radio, whatever it is. You know, some people just weren't meant, I don't care if you're a Christian or not, some people just weren't meant for a relationship with others. You know, and it's just kind of like, you know, hey, I got a great job for you, and you're so, you know, encourage them in that. So I've got a few people that are very opinionated, that love to, you know, Philip's great, you know, they're Satan worshipers, whatever, you know, it's kind of like, you know, whatever. It's just funny, there's some of the people that I have, and my kid, you know what, he'd be great back here. You know, 'cause the conversations they had on the buffet line, I was just kind of like, stop it up the buffet. Come with me, I got a great job. But to be able to see those things, and you know, and listen to your other volunteers, and be able to, you know, eliminate those issues, and that's where the leadership really comes in. When you're running your team, you have to put people in the right places, and it's just like a baseball coach or a football coach. You know, if somebody's slacking in an area and the defense isn't, you know, you got a couple of errors in this area, all right, bring up the farm league, whatever it's going to take. You know, you got to do it, and do it very respectfully, but you still have to make those decisions. And people, I mean, I don't care what anyone says, in the long run, if they see the efficiency and they see that something's being run better, they're going to praise you in the long run for you know, because it's a team effort. And we're doing this all for the kingdom. We're not doing this for ourselves. And most people, if they get over that part of it, and they understand that this is a kingdom thing and it's not about me, you know, Rick Warren, if anybody's doing purpose-driven life, you know, that's the first line. It's not about me. And that was the biggest thing that I had to get over as a leader, was just like, okay, I'm doing this because it used to be about my pocketbook, and then it was about keeping up with my friends from high school, and it was keeping up with my friends in college, and then it was keeping up with my neighbor, then it was, you know, all these other things. You go to the church business and go back to the secular thing, and you're just kind of like, okay, all right, we're here for a different purpose. And if God blesses us with a great, better paycheck than we got
when we're in the secular world with less stress and we get to spend more time with our family and everything else, then that's a great thing. But my boss Andy Stanley wrote a book. It used to be called Choose to Cheat, but I think it's Winning at Home and Work or something like that now, because I guess Choose to Cheat wasn't appropriate, so they changed the title. But it tells us, and that's one thing as a leader that we all have to make sure that we do, is we need to make sure that those people are getting those time, that time off. And when we work them, and we have these conventions or concerts or whatever it is that we do in hospitality, be very cognizant of what's going on in your environment, making sure that those people are protected, and the volunteers, they'll, when you start hearing the grumbling as a leader, get on it quick, and see what, sometimes just ordering pizza for them, or or just doing something out of the ordinary, or sending them a card or a phone call and just appreciating what they're doing will re-energize them it's unbelievable how quick that you can turn that around if you have communication with them. And it's the same with our churches. I don't know if any of you guys have large, everybody's small, medium, large, a little bit of everything in here. So we have about 5,000 in our church. To be able to keep and to connect with them, it's really hard. And usually you hear, if you hear anything, it's like why they left. I just didn't feel like I was a part of, and it's just like if they would have gotten one phone call, for the 6 months that no one, they didn't see anybody for 6 months, and then all of a sudden there's like, yeah, I was gone for 6 months and no one ever gave me a phone call or sent me, you got the regular email. But those are the kind of things we need to do the same thing with our flock within, because our volunteers, because sometimes if we don't have a big event for a long time, we kind of fall off the radar, or if they're not our prime pick or something like that. So we got to make sure that we keep that relationship. So always invite individuals into meaningful ministry, and then equip your team for ministry success. It's one of the other big things that we lose sight of that. So we don't have, we might not put the right people in charge. We might, just from everything from scheduling, letting people know, being informative, training, just like this morning in the banquet, like you didn't see anything. If you noticed, they're not haphazard about the way that they were serving. Napkins were folded this way. Notice which side that your food was delivered on. Notice which side your food was picked up on. Notice the way that they poured coffee. If we don't, a lot of times we'll just like, hey, we need a server. We throw these people in the mix, and we don't take the time to invest in them. So we need to make sure that as a leader, when we're doing that, to amplify our leadership and to make sure that we've got to make sure that everybody's covered and that we really care about it. So that means investing in training. Not everything that has a dollar sign doesn't mean that we have to avoid it. And that's the problem with a lot of the churches. My opinion is a lot of times we try to avoid anything that costs money to try to save money, and then you're not going to get first class. And in order to run a first class operation, sometimes you got to invest in it. You got to invest in your people. So it's one of those things. So it's taking your team on a yearly, whatever it is. We always do something fun for ministry. I'll go to a baseball game, or we'll do we'll do something, and then whatever people complain about, then we won't do that again, and we'll do something else, to make everyone happy, because it's virtually impossible. If you go to the baseball game, the only seats that you can afford, I can't afford them, so then you're way up here. But then my seniors, they're like, all the way, and they're just coming. All right, next year we'll do something else. What do you want to do? So they let you make the decision. So and it's just fun. But you just go and have a good time. It's all about fellowship and spending time with your team and getting to know them. And when you know people, when I don't see my volunteers for a while, last week I called. We have Billy and Dee Graham, and it's funny. Anybody remember Carol Burnett show? The old band, So I have a couple, and they love to serve food. And we do a la carte, like per order, from our cafe into our dining room. So they're getting tickets. So our chefs are working full short order cook. So they're cooking to order. And we just started this a couple of years ago. It's been successful. People get to choose what they want. So the buffet thing, and you were throwing tons of food out. So they started doing that. But they're and then after time, it's in my staff's like, I can't do this anymore. So this is coming from my chef, and I got to make those hard decisions. I got to find a place for them because they love doing it so much. But keeping an eye on them. But I didn't see them for a little while, so I just gave them a call, and then it's just amazing how much they came up to me on Sunday and said, Kevin, that you just don't know how much that phone call means to us for all those years they've served. They've been serving for 20-something years, and then but if it wasn't, I'm still the new guy even at 5 years. I mean, these guys, we get so busy doing other things. And if you're a good leader, you put that on your whiteboard. You make sure your number one job at that church is to make sure that people are noticed, but that they're cared for. I mean, they're all our sheep.
We have a lot of volunteers. Doug is my director of food service, and he's also head of the volunteers. So I feel like we're very lucky. But with those volunteers, just in the last 3 years, we've had 3 of them die, and we've kept their spouses on and loved on them and pretty much helped them through some tough times. They've been married for 50 years, and
And if it wasn't for their ministry,
they
would sit at home and they would just.
Now there might be a Sunday school class loving on them too, but then when they come into work in the kitchen, they're getting loved on, and it's just so big.
But that's where the family. That's where the family got in the kingdom, and that's what we're there for. And it's just amazing how, we can make a difference. And Ron, that works for Marcus, unbelievable. When he explained it, we were sitting at our board meeting yesterday, and he's explaining what he does, and that's exactly his whole day consists of calling up all the volunteers and just keeping track of them. But he sends them anniversary cards, birthday cards, everything. And I don't know how many anybody use Fellowship U or Fellowship One or any type of.
With the pins?
Yeah, well, no, we use the not those our systems to keep track of like birthdays and everything else, and it's important. I can go online right now and look up any member in our church, picture, face.
We use a Shelby.
Yeah, well, we have Shelby for accounting, and then Fellowship One is just our database for our members and what classes they've attended and things like that. So it's a really neat tool because we're able to. You get that extra, you can, if you're thinking about somebody, and I use this all the time, it's like the Holy Spirit will convict me, and I'm just like, man, I wonder how Bob Smith's doing. Right now, I don't have to have Bob Smith in my phone. I'll pull it up on my Fellowship One, and I can send him an email, I can, text him a message, whatever I want to, it's right there. And it makes a difference in that, how you do those things. So, and I've encouraged, I also do the weekday greeters. So all my people are there. So having members like we have, I just print out a few pages at a time, and I ask them as I make phone calls for all of our members. Just call them up and say, hey, we just wanted to pray for you today. We're sitting here and we're doing greeting, and is there anything I can pray for you? And that makes a difference also. You just never know, and God's gonna have it's all it's there. He knows that we're gonna call, and you just got to think of those leadership things that we can do and amplify what we're doing for the congregation and for the flock. So I just always want to stay on top of that. So, and we go to part 4, coaching an apprentice. So you always, and I don't know if your pastors are really pushing this, but we have to make disciples. And our tagline at our church is to glorify God by making disciples of Jesus Christ across the street and around the world. So our whole purpose in life, Matthew, if you want to get in there, is always just recreating ourselves, and just teaching people about the Word and getting it out there. And if we don't continue to teach people, the best thing that we can always do, and it was always the happiest part in my life when I had the ice cream store and the franchises, is when a young guy comes in and he's got a young family and he's my assistant manager or whatever it is, and then I get to promote him to a management position, and I see him grow. He started as a scooper, now he's an assistant, now he's a manager, and then he comes in and he, Kevin, I just got most of them are kind of like, I just got, I just got a job offer, kind of. Man, I'm so proud. You have to be like a parent. You have to be proud that you're moving on and you're moving up. If you were going to work for someone else making $3 less, because I was working to death, that'd be different. But we always have to lead people up and always train your employees to take over your position. And if you're so prideful that you're afraid you're holding on to your job that tight, that you're afraid that somebody's gonna come out and outdo you. You know, if they're gonna outdo you, they probably deserve it anyway, you know, because it probably means that you weren't doing that great of a job anyway. But some people hold on to so many things that they don't want to teach anyone else because, all right, Kevin's on vacation, but we have to call him because he won't teach us how to do it. So, you know, but Kevin never gets rest because if I don't do that, if I don't hand that over and I don't let it go as a leader, I'm the one that's gonna get a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm the one that's gonna. You got it all. I pass it all out. It's like, it's all yours. And you can have it all you want. If you don't want it, you can hand it back to me. But I'm gonna give you an opportunity to have that. And we got to continue to do that and, you know, equip our people and just always coaching that apprentice. So you always want to select the best potential leader. So you want to look for that person. You want to always look for, you know, not the duck that's going to turn into eagle, because that's not going to happen. But you definitely want to look for that baby eagle. Is there a technical name for baby eagles? 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 Baby eagles? But you want to take that and just, you know, you want to find people that just love Christ, and you want to do that. We have an intern program, and some of the young guys that go through it, you're just like, it's just so refreshing to see somebody on so much fire for the Lord, and in seminary, and you know that. But the pastors, you know, the senior pastor and executive pastor and all these other guys, they pick these people, handpick them for internship because they have something that, you know, that they see in them, and you just like, and those are the kind of people that we want to hire in hospitality. We know that, you know, we want to hire the person that comes in there. It's like, man, I want to serve in hospitality. You know, somebody's going to come up and just beat you over the head. Like, where do I start? You know, you want those people. You know, so I got a lady. Her name's Susan Riley, but I call her Smiley, Susan Smiley. But she's just always that person that's always there and just always ready to, you know, to take on. And that's the kind of thing that we need to continue to do that. But coaching that apprentice and building those leaders. So always look for that. So anyone that's emerging leaders within your church, you want to always, you know, take them on. And we know that the only way that we're going to change the world is through leadership, and we have to be great leaders in order to do that. We're actually missions trip. My first overseas mission trip. I'm going to Haiti on the 14th of July. So pray for me. And we're going there to work with Teen Challenge to actually train young men to be better men, and you know, to be able to be leaders in their house and to stay with their spouse, and you know, to actually be better leaders. Because if we don't, 65% of their population is under 25, and no one will ever change that. People commit to Jesus and change their ways, but if they don't know how to be leaders, because just like, unfortunately, I grew up in a household that didn't have a leader, and it took me a long time to get there. So it's one of those things. We only know what we know, you know, and that's if we don't know the word, we don't know the word. So be able to invest in those people and make sure that they know what hospitality is and what being a leader is all about. They'll look back and you always want to. Everybody's always going to go back and trace where the seed started. You know, like where was that seed planted? You know, because you always want to know. And fortunately, I can look back, and most people can do that. So you always want to, you know, give people that opportunity. And then part 5 is mentor a new leader. So you know, just always try to focus on you know, finding new leaders, especially in your church, because that's what people are there. I mean, really, people want to lead, and they want to be a part of. You know, so what we have to be very creative. We have to find new ways of taking those leaders and helping them develop a way to be a part of, you know, the ministry. So, you know, we can create new programs. We can create, you know, new ways of thinking. We can do outside catering, inside. I mean, there's so many things that we can do. We can take our ministry outside. We can do more inside. And you know, as leaders, and everybody tell us that they'll keep doing that. They'll keep telling us how to do those things. So if we develop new leaders and we create that same, I guess you can't teach everybody creativity and, you know, that passion, but we can pick those people that have that same. You know, unfortunately, our executive pastor and myself are both we're creative thinkers and not implementers. So we rely on our teams to take our ideas and run with them. And he's like in this, I mean, he never likes to meet about the same thing twice mentality. So he's just going, okay, if I told you you could do something once, go ahead. That means it's okay. You know, you don't need to do that. You know, if you authorize it, like give that
responsibility to your team and let them run with it. Come up with some ideas. You know, during meetings, we don't have to have a CEO every week and just, you know, or BEO meeting and go over the same things and make this boring. It's just like, okay, how can we do this better? You know, always, how can we do this? And then just always empower effective leaders. When we see people that have that potential, give them the, you know, empower them to go out and succeed and to be better and keep growing. And give them those tools. You know, that's the biggest thing. You know, pray for them, pray over them. And that's the biggest, you know, I think that's the one thing that my team has understood the most is that, you know, that I'm not afraid to when somebody comes in, hurt people, you know that old saying. You know, the grumpy guy that's complaining about Wednesday night meals. Is it really Wednesday night meal that, you know, that's, you know, it's not Wednesday night meal. It's not who served it. It's not that, you know, this person's being grumpy. They're looking for that person to help you out, and they're looking for that. So you always want to do that. So it's always, you want to find those people that you take care of people that way. So it's a good read. And of course, I mean, there's a ton of little, you know, great sayings in here, and probably the this right here that everybody can relate to. And of course, I underline so much. Our best connection to God's power is on our knees and sweet conversation with Him. So I've always thought that was neat. So the power of prayer, you know, is going to take our departments to the levels that we never can imagine what they would be in. But people don't know how much you know until they know how much you care. You know, and that's such a you know, it's so integral. It's such an important part of our ministry, and we just have to care for people. And it's being a amplified leader requires all those 5 parts. And I'm going to put I'll put it online, and then of course the presentation will be on there. But I've got it in form, and I was going to print it out. I just got lazy this morning and didn't print it out with Janae. Our power went out in our church last Sunday morning. So of course, when you're about to leave for Orlando, the next morning you're like, I'm going to spend the weekend with my family, and I'll put this off until Sunday morning, and in between services or whatever, I can print up my little outline, everything else. So everything's on my desktop. I didn't put anything on my USB, and my dog ate it. So kind of like, yeah, sure this was. So does anybody have any questions about amplified leadership, or is there anybody? I guess the biggest thing is that is anybody struggling with an area that, you know, the GACHP? Is there anyone that, you know, can we help you guys, the board members or other members, just help you get through any areas that you need some consulting or just advice or prayer or anything? And that's what we really want to do during this 3 days as we're getting together, and you know, and we meet at the hospitality room tonight. Steve's going to be you know, arranging it, taking care of that. But all those things are just making sure that we're getting those prayers out, and we're writing down our prayers, and that we can really be an influence and be inspiration, and help us, you know, just the whole organization, because we know this is such an important part of our lives, you know, to be a part of this. But you know, for kingdom building, you know, purposes, it's just a great thing. So always just want to make sure that you guys are to equip and inspire. So we definitely want to equip you and inspire you to be the best that you can be. And you know, God didn't make you know, I mean, everyone's worthy. So you know, so we all know that. So any questions, concerns, comments?
You say you're going to put it on?
Yeah, well, I'll put it on the either website, either the video, and I'll put the outline of the 5. I'll write all those up and put it on like a little outline. So I'll put that on there. So it'll be on the website. I'll get Janae to put it on there. So everybody sign in.
Kevin, I got one.
Yes, sir.
I got one example of your volunteers, how you treat them, how you witness to them, how much they help. That's one of our biggest things in our church, is how many volunteers that I've got and how much they do for me. So we decided we wouldn't have Wednesday night suppers for the month of July and last week of June. And so I called them all in, and I said, we're going to give you a little vacation, since we're just not going to have suppers. And they sort of was down. I mean, I've never seen anybody go down. They went down a little bit in their frowns. So, 2 days later, the older people in the church decided they wanted to have a prayer meeting, and so we decided to go back to Wednesday night supper on a smaller scale, which we did. But I still didn't need the volunteers because it was just gonna be a 1 or 2 person deal, so we decided not to do that. Last week, we've been off now 3 weeks, basically, the volunteers have. I've had 3 of them come, he says, "Honey, please find us something to do. We just gotta come back." So, yes, I'm bringing them back, some of them, they just won't be there. I mean, it's not like, if you treat them well, and you give them what they want, and respect them, I think that's the big key. A lot of them are older, but they really want to be there. So just remember, volunteers are very important to your church.
And we also don't treat them like, give them these menial tasks. We tell them, make this job the best that you can make it. We'll adjust it if we don't like where it's going. And if you treat them like a monkey, they're gonna do monkey work.
Well, but that's what most church volunteers are used to.
Right.
Somebody just send out an email, 50 people, and then 50 people show up, and then you have work for the first 3 people.
That's right.
And then 47 people sit around, and I'm like, that's one of my pet peeves. I'm like, let's break this out. I mean, we know what happens in a banquet. We know that we need, okay, table setting, this is gonna take this long, this is gonna take this long. Give each volunteer 4 tables, whatever, and based on their abilities, and we know them. But if we get to know them, we know exactly what their capabilities are, and it makes them feel important. There's nothing better than giving a volunteer a checklist, and you prepare, so they're like, wow, this is like, so that's what my kitchen staff does. They'll give a prepared list, and they'll put their name on top of it. Oh, so Joyce, this is what we have you in charge of tonight. So you're in this, you're doing soup, you're doing this, and they're just like, wow, they took all that time. Take any time to do it, because we know we do this every day, but they come in there. It's amazing how that can just change that mindset, because now we're not just a haphazard church that just throws a bunch of people in there, and that's how you lose volunteers. I mean, you come in and and we know sometimes that volunteers, they'll let you down, and you're just like, and that's where my staff is just like, that's the hardest part, is like, oh yeah, we have 14 people coming in on Sunday morning to help us out with omelets and waffles and everything else, and then 4 of them, oh, I'm so sorry, my son was sick, and I figured you'd have enough, because every time I come in, there's always more than enough, so they just assume, but they didn't call the other 14 people, so it's just, you get in that, and so the next time, then somebody goes, well, we had 14 last time, so let's get 20 this time. So then, then all 20 show up, and then they'll never volunteer for you again because you've done that. So it's very, run it like you're going to run your business. And be very, very intentional, and make sure that we do that.
Everything is about relationships, and so invest the time with them up front, get to know them, know their heart, because you get them in the place where their heart is, and they're there forever.
And if you build a relationship, those ones, if you call in 20, you want those ones to come back in and say, like, you know what, you're right, and they'll tell you, hey, you had way too many people for this event, and you're able to talk to them. Have that open line of communication. No one should be timid or you shouldn't feel that way when you're working with people. You should be able to tell them exactly what's on your heart, because if we don't, we're not being honest, with ourselves.
We also say that, you're volunteering for your God.
That's right.
You're not volunteering.
That's right. It's not for me.
I'm working with you to do God's work. And with that mindset, some people just think that they're working for this kitchen guy, and I'm like, no, I'm helping you achieve your work for the kingdom. And once they get that, and they just take off, and you got a volunteer that starts leading. It's
there you go. That's what you have. Well, let's close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you so much today, just for everything that you've taught us, everything that you've just empowered us with. We appreciate the fact that you trust us enough to continue to disciple and to love others. We just ask that each and every one of our ministries is blessed with volunteers and leadership and the staff that it takes to be a first-class operation, because your name's on it, and it's your church. In your name we pray. Amen. What's next? What's the next big class? Everybody sign in?
Yeah.
Kevin. What's up?
Also, I wanted to mention
Doug's here. You want the Doug's thing?
I guess.
Yeah, I might go to the school lunch.
So obviously it's a healthy Sunday. Yeah,
Marcus been out?
Kings game,
Marcus, yeah.
energy and Kenny's.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be.
No, he called it cancel.
So much. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, I honestly,
Thanks, it's good to see you.
you know, as Kevin said, don't have too many volunteers. We've got a lot of volunteers.
But not creative thinker.
Yeah. Mainly because I
So
wasn't here.
that's, you know.
Yeah, I come to go to that.
I can do this.
Oh, I stay in here?